Wolfwalkers is a captivating and ethereal coming-of-age story that maps onto the LGBT experience. There are a plethora of complex themes in this movie. The ecological harm of human colonization, the psychological impacts of parenting, and the bigotry that comes from fear and lack of understanding. Not to mention this movie has beautiful hand-drawn art and a breathtaking soundtrack. But below the surface, I think this movie could have a secondary underlying meaning. I believe this is a story about the psychological effects of repressing one's sexuality or gender identity. So today I wanted to break down the story of Wolfwalkers and give my perspective on the LGBT imagery and the psychology of repression. I'm Very. If you could like and subscribe, would ya? Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll always see my latest content. Wolfwalkers tells the story of Robin. She lives in a small religious town with her father, surrounded by the natural world. Robin is a rambunctious young English girl who wants to explore the wilds for herself. This goes against her father's wishes. Bill has an obsession with keeping his daughter out of harm's way. Despite Robin's anguish, the townsfolk hate wolves and their bigotry is very prominent. All around the town are signs and posters with negative depictions of wolves, similar to how a lot of media portrays the LGBT community with a negative connotation. One day, wolves attack because humans are encroaching upon their land. Robin sneaks out with her bird Merlin, despite her father's wishes. She tracks her father until she comes across the attacking wolf. Robin wants to kill one to make her dad proud. She confronts the beast, but she accidentally shoots her bird. Then we meet Meb, a wolfwalker. She takes Merlin and flees into the forest. Robin can't leave her beloved pet behind, so she follows Meb. She springs a trap, but her enemy comes to her rescue. At first, Robin only sees her as a wolf. She attacks the wolfwalker in fear, but Meb was only trying to help. She unintentionally bites Robin when she sets her free. This is the first time Robin can see Meb's human form. She tracks the wolfwalker back to a den to find a pack of wolves. Meb howls and uses the power of nature to heal Robin's wound. This is the first time we see their friendship begin to blossom. As they explore the forest, they almost run into Robin's dad. Bill has been tasked with killing the wolves in the forest by the Lord Protector. Once Bill leaves, the two have fun adventures in the forest. Meb tells Robin that she wants to leave, but she can't because her mother went missing. Their time together is short-lived, because Robin must return home before her father. She gets it in her mind that if she can explain the situation to him, then there can be a resolution between the wolves and the townsfolk. But Robin underestimates her father's controlling tendencies. After their argument subsides, our hero goes to sleep and begins to dream. She sees herself as a wolf exploring the woods, until she wakes up to reality. She has to work as punishment for her constant shenanigans. Here she stumbles upon a giant cage and her bite mark begins to glow. Right before she approaches, a worker tells her to leave the Lord Protector's domain. After a grueling day of labor, Robin can no longer stay awake. She falls asleep and awakens in her wolf form. She flees the town in a panic and reconvenes with Meb. Together they explore the wild. Robin is experiencing all these new things she never thought possible. You can see the contentment on her face, compared to her normal life where she feels minimized. This sentiment can often be true of LGBT members as well. Getting out of a toxic situation with families or communities can feel like exploring a new world. These thoughts and feelings that were profane before might not be the same without the town dictating reality. Although Robin is happy as a wolf, she knows she can't stay. In a tense sequence of events, Robin tries to return home. She evades the hateful hordes by sneaking back into the Protector's room. She finds the wolfwalker's mother, Mole. Robin tries to set Mole free, but the Protector spots Robin and chases her off. He then decides with the growing tensions between the wolves and townfolk that he will kill Meb's mother and launch an attack on the wolves. Robin and Meb plan to talk about what to do next, but Robin is stuck at work. She sends Merlin with a message telling Meb to leave. The original wolfwalker sneaks in and talks to the English girl. Robin takes on a similar role to her father, in which she captures Meb to protect her. The wolfwalker gets free and tries to break out her mother, but she fails. Bill gets bitten in the process. Meb swears revenge on the townsfolk and calls the wolves to ready their attack. Robin confronts the Lord Protector and her father. Bill tells his child that he wants to protect her. He admits his controlling behaviors come from the fact that he thinks that no one will accept his daughter. But Robin says she already feels like she's in a cage. Robin flees with Meb's mother, and they regroup with the pack. Together they stand to defend their land from the invaders. Bill finds Meb's mother and shoots her with an arrow, causing serious damage. The Lord Protector locks up Bill because of his repeated incompetency and trouble-causing daughter. The townsmen find the hideout. They beat the wolves in battle, and Robin is on the verge of death. But in a shocking plot twist, Bill breaks free and turns into a wolf. He attacks the Lord Protector and backs him into a corner. Rather than be defeated by a wolf, he suicides. Together, Meb, Robin, and Bill help Mole recover. They ask Bill to stay and join their pack, to which he agrees. The plot is resolved, and you can see how content all the characters are now that they're away from the town. Now that we've gone over the story, let's break down some particular elements of the plot and how they relate to psychology. The first thing I think we should talk about is the LGBT imagery in the movie. To break this down, let's look at Robin's character. She's been caged up her entire life, always hearing stories of the evils of wolves. But when she begins to interact with them, she understands that they have a better way of life for her. She gets to be who she wants, free from constraint and judgment. This is in stark contrast with her feelings in town. Her father and the townsfolk constantly write her off. Being a woman during this period meant that you were essentially second class, so she's afraid to speak out because of the fear of repercussions. She escapes her circumstances when she dreams and gets to enjoy life to the fullest. Robin is afraid of these feelings, so she tries to deny them and force herself to stay awake. Repression is also shown in the art and color design. When anyone goes into the wild, they see a serene landscape brimming with color, trees, waterfall, and wildlife. But in the town, all of the colors are subdued, void of happiness for the most part. The buildings and surrounding areas look bleak and lifeless, signifying the oppression ever constant in the town. I think the color choices and imagery are intentional. I believe it adds credence to the idea that Wolfwalkers has an LGBT undertone. When someone is in the closet, the world can often feel like it does in the confines of the town. This idea that you aren't acceptable because of the reactions of the people in town. Being treated like a wolf, even though you're human just the same. Feeling bad about who you are ends up making the world around you seem bleak. But left in the natural world, and it seems like the forest folk are much more content and fulfilled overall. Free to express themselves however they want, without repercussions. I think a perfect example of repression in psychology is the relationship between Bill and Robin. When I say repression, I mean that someone isn't able to experience the fulfillment that they want for various reasons. Sexual preferences and gender can be a huge part of a person's identity. Robin is trying to show who she is to her father, but Bill is unreceptive or tries to talk her down. Some examples of this: forcing Robin to stay home and hide from others, not going into the woods, or saying she believes in fairy tales. If we take a step back and reinterpret the meaning of what Bill is saying, the sentiment can feel very similar to LGBT experiences. Sometimes coming out doesn't go as expected. A common experience can be to feel like someone is trying to talk you out of who you are. Negative interactions like these can have lasting psychological effects. Depression and self-loathing can be devastating for people who are sexually repressed or don't have the freedom to identify how they want. Being trapped or locked in a cage can be a relatable feeling. This is how Robin feels when she interacts with her dad. He admits that his controlling tendencies come from his fear of persecution. I think fear is an important factor, because it's something that can easily be used to control groups of people. But this fear and consequent repression aren't good for relationships. The more that Bill tries to control and dictate his daughter's interactions, the more she becomes estranged from him. Not to mention that she imparts Bill's control onto another. In the scene where Meb's mother is about to be executed, Robin locks her up to protect her. She's transferring the abusive tendencies from her father onto Meb, but I think this is because she's still unsure about who she is, and so she's projecting what she thinks is normal behavior. Another example of psychology and LGBT discrimination is in the wolf's depiction in town in the shadows. Signs of hate towards the wolves are littered all around town. The children are all taught that wolves are monsters, so they pretend to hunt them. But in the context of the movie, the wolves almost always act defensively. The wolves practice incredible restraint, despite the rampant land colonization by the townsmen. Propaganda goes out to them to make them hate the wolves. Whenever the wolves are on screen, they also cast an ominous shadow when in town. I think this is on purpose, to illustrate people's views on wolves compared to reality. They see massive, monstrous creatures. However, the wolves are much smaller than their assumptions, but these assumptions can confirm certain behaviors. For example, if a human attacks a wolf because they've bought into anti-wolf propaganda, it will defend itself, but by defending itself, it must use force. Once the attacker sees this force, they can then justify their actions because it confirms their assumptions about the wolf. This is a concept in psychology called confirmation bias. It's the idea that if we make an assumption about an interaction, we can confirm things we are looking for. I think this speaks to Robin's character and the wolves. If the townsfolk didn't assume so much based on the propaganda, it seems plausible that they could coexist with the wolves. But if they invade others' lands, then of course the wolves will act defensively. The violent reaction from the wolves then confirms this bigotry. Confirmation bias can also have a great impact on interactions with others. Assuming the worst about people can make people feel ostracized and become what is assumed to some extent. This interaction I feel is especially true in regards to LGBT issues. One good example relates to psychology. The American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the list of mental illnesses, which sounds like a step in the right direction, until you realized it happened less than 50 years ago. It was removed in 1973, but in my opinion, it's a good example of confirmation bias. LGBT members face inordinate amounts of discrimination compared to cis people. Living in a society that minimizes LGBT members, it makes sense they would have higher rates of depression or suicidality. But this isn't caused by being LGBT itself, as previously stated in the APA. The depressive feelings are caused by living in the towns, and being cruel to the wolves that society creates. Well, this concludes my analysis of the movie. I believe that Wolfwalkers has some profound messages from which we can all learn from. Having an awareness of our environment and how it affects our perceptions of reality is important if we want to understand one another more. It's very easy to lead our lives interacting through fear, creating these wolves inside of our minds that are scarier than reality itself. But if we can take a step back, we can see that everyone wants to feel how they would in a world free from constraints. The next time we have a negative assumption about someone, let's take a moment and think. Would we want to be treated like a wolf without getting a chance to express who we are? Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on Wolfwalkers. Also, did you notice the same things I did? Or maybe something I missed? I'd love to hear it.